Right. I know you're trying. You're very trying.
That's what my wife said.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Okay, we've got for our second act, we have Adeel Ahmad from Cevo, where I work. Short plug. We do DevOps, migrations, landing zones, so getting into that for us. And Adeel is a DevOps background. And he
Everything. Everything.
Yeah, he does everything. He does DevOps and he dabbles in AI, which I don't know, seems to be the thing he dabbles in. So Adeel's going to talk about serverless, the intersection of generative AI.
I don't think we could have started 2024 without some GenAI.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a rule.
I think we ended last year with a GenAI talk and we've started.
Yeah, well,
If anyone else has got any talks, we're all ears.
yes.
Don't be shy. Anyway, without further ado, Adeel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let me ask you first this question. How many of you understand what is the second brain before I start diving into it? No one? Yes, you do. Okay. So the concept of second brain, we'll try to explore that and how that helps or makes us productive, because the whole idea of generative AI is to make us all super productive somehow. So I'm just exploring, and this is just hypothetically somewhat implemented, some not, some pending idea, which with architecture that I want to present and give it to you, and let's see where this goes. So hi, my name is Adeel. I work at Cevo, just like Matt, and just into generative AI, AWS, open source, home lab, and LLMs. And yeah, these are two of my sons. So the idea of second brain, but this where this comes from is this guy, Trigo Forte, if I'm not butchering his name. And the idea is that we all attend meetings, we all take notes on, when we watch some trainings, when we, attend a meeting, we all are doing these sort of things, right? But what happens to those notes? Does anyone know where your notes are from 5 years ago or 6 years ago? No, most of us just lose that, right? But there's a lot of valuable information, because when you collect all, let's say you have a repository of 5 or 10 years of notes, right? And somehow you can correlate some ideas. So you can find, what you are going to find is that the ideas are coming from different angles and they're connecting together to build up new ideas. So there's a book on it, and the book is, I think, How to Build a Second Brain, and this is the author of that book. So I have been working on this idea like from years. I used so many different notes, all sorts of notes applications, but I couldn't do it, primarily because of lack of technology or lack of, because it will be different for everyone. It will be different for you. It would be different for me. It would be different for everyone, because it is mainly to help our brains to be more productive. And each one of us have different brains as humans. So what this is that you have your knowledge all stored in a way that you can access, and not only access it, but also easily understand and consume it when needed. So that's a big task if you are doing it manually. So people have came up with different sort of Notion or different sort of other notes application. There are open source people as well, which have done some great work, which didn't work for me, but is the great work like Logseek and some other folks as well. But what they are doing is they're having a pattern where you can take your notes, you tag them, you categorize them, you put them into some sort of application or some sort of database, and then you can access them. When you can search them, you can find them, or you can make different dashboards for you, just to make sure that you are more productive. For example, I'll give you one example. Like I attended a meeting 3 weeks ago, I took my notes over there, and that topic is intersecting with the meeting that I'm right now. I'm making my notes, so that meeting pops up, and it helps me connect the context. So because the whole benefit of this way of working is to make us more productive and get most out of our note-taking habits and all these things. So as this is definition, I took it from his website. It's an external digital repository for your ideas, insights, and knowledge. Expands your memory, intellect using technology. A system to systematically manage the information you encounter. Let's see. So why build the second brain or this sort of system? Of course, we want to build it for the managing the information overload efficiently, because all of us, especially nowadays, are interacting with a lot of different things in a single day. And to be able to consume that and be able to utilize that in the most productive way, it is getting more and more difficult every day. So you want to have something of this sort. And if you think, as humans, we do have like two sort of brain, conscious brain and subconscious brain, right? We can't have like the subconscious brain is not active all the time. So that's something that is getting active during when you sleep or something like that, right? So the concept is same here. You have your notes and repositories that you have own yourself written down somewhere else, but when you need it, you get that out automatically. So you want to have the management of the information. You want to enhance your memory, right? You want to support your creative and productive works. That's one way to do it, and at the end, increase your productivity. All right. So how do you build it? There are many different people coming up with different sort of analogies how you can build this sort of information or your notes, put them in some sort of a system which you would be able to consume it back as well. Consider yourself like the enterprise that you are working in right now, right? You're managing their database, you're tasked with that. Consider that situation, same level of, with the same concept that I'm discussing here. So one of the idea that really rhymed or I liked was, it's called code, which is for capturing, organizing, distilling, and expressing. That's the way to do it. You capture your notes, and save your ideas, insights, whatever resonates with you, whatever you like. You put them someplace digitally that is accessible. Then you organize them. And for organization, there are different methods for organization. You can organize them by tag, by date, by related to, it is related to my work, is it related to personal thing or something else. But this one method is called para, which is project areas, resource, and archives. So you divide your work into these sort of, organize them due to these sort of factors, and then put them into, again, organize them into some sort of database. Then you distill them. Distilling means you summarize them, or you make it in a form that is consumable for you, because all we humans have is not unlimited memory. We also have like the memory and the context limitations here as well. And at the end, you can express them, you can use them. That's just one of the high level, at a very high level. This is how you do it, but I'm not sure if that resonates with you because you said you know it. So, okay, so now why do we choose AWS Serverless here? Like, where does it come into? That's the question most of you might be thinking right now. Like, how does the AWS Serverless fits into this? Okay, so like I said, that I have tried many different applications, all sorts of notes applications and everything, nothing works. So what I found was that it has to be a system that is more tends toward my need, because it needs to make me productive. It cannot be the other way around it. So if I were to build a system, so as a solutions architect, naturally I thought, okay, I'll try to architect it on AWS environment. Let's say, consider it is a SaaS application for many customers, right? Or something like that, from that angle. So what I found out is that I can take advantage of serverless, because there are services like Lambda, like Glue, and there are for storage, I can utilize Amazon S3, Glacier for archiving, So there are these services that resonate with that idea and fits back into it for many reasons, but primarily for the cost purposes. Because if I want to build it, I cannot spend a lot of money on it for a personal note-taking thing, and can't take it like far away from paying thousands of dollars per month. But we will look at a way that is not going to be expensive, but still using AWS services. And that's the only way to do it is serverless, because you will be only charged by the utilization of whatever you have. And I'll also discuss this later, that the generative AI comes into this as well, and you can also utilize that in a particular way that that will not cost you a lot if you're running those models on GPU or like even SageMaker or something like that. So yeah, so we have storage, we have scalability, we can run workflows using step functions, we can utilize large language models or on-demand machine learning or NLP if we want to go a little bit further. And for security, we have KMS, Cognito, or SSM, things like that. So that's the reason that if I were to architect this sort of system for myself or for an organization, I would probably use AWS Serverless out of AWS environment, right? So, okay, so then comes the generative AI offerings. Like, what do AWS currently have in there? I'm discussing this because the way that I envision that we will be architecting this a bit different than what AWS currently offers. But if I were to do it for production for a customer, I would not go to that route. Rather, I would use Bedrock or SageMaker or EC2 or other services that AWS have. Not because of like my use case is not right. That may be right for some organizations in production as well, but because these services does come up with an extra layer of security, protection, and other things that you don't want to be in when you're going to production. So, okay, so again, the question is, why spending that much money on something that is only for notes, for your personal notes? Okay, so why spend that much money? Let's see. So when we were architecting, or I was thinking about it, so AWS services actually, especially the serverless one, we can take advantage of them at a low cost. They are scalable, they are secure. You have ease of deployment, and it's all optimized for cost. So the way that I tried right now, probably at the end of the day, you will look at it and you'll see, yes, it might be a cost-effective solution, rather than just deciding, okay, no, this may be too much cost for this solution. Or I'd rather pay $100 for Notion or something like that and be done with it. So let's think this through. Let's try thinking about like how we can use it, how we can take advantage of large language models or AI into this. Before we talk about this, one of the things that I want to talk about is like how I consume my notes. I'm not sure, or how I consume different sort of information right now, and which is one of the reasons that we'll look at the architecture as well, which I did it in that way, but you can also customize it to your needs. So my digital information consumer needs include, obviously reading. I read online a lot, different articles, different like RSS feeds and things like that. So, and on top of that, sometimes there are like GitHub repositories, sometimes they're code. So how I understand a lot of things is sometimes I just don't have time to read all the article. So what I do is I just copy the content, I send it to AI. AI even doesn't know about it, but it can answer me back. But what I do is I ask AI to create a podcast out of it. So it will create a podcast for me around that topic, a conversation from different angles. I have got a different prompt that actually generate dialogues for me. And then I have a batch script which actually automatically processes those dialogues into an audio file just on Mac OS X without any need of text-to-speech or anything like that special. So that's one way, because I understand things more visually or more audioly, but it must be different for anybody else, for you guys, right? So one way is that. The other way is a lot of the time in the blog post or in the article, people have described a problem space and then a solution to that, and they have like code and different parts in chunks, not all together, especially on Medium, if somebody I have read it. So what I do is I just copy the content, give it to AI. I ask it, okay, give me the complete code in a Go, and it will give you the complete code from that page that actually works and things like that. So I don't have to go through and do all of these things. This is making me productive. But the problem is, this AI that I'm talking about, it has a cost to it. And that's what I'm trying to solve here with this solution. And how, let's take a look at it. So first of all, I'm explaining that not every use case you need large language model. And there are small models as well. For example, BERT, T5, and different model or different versions of BERT model, which were here long ago, long before ChatGPT. And they have been utilized into production and even right now as well. So we can offload that sort of workload to AWS Lambda. So you don't need GPU to run that. You can have a very small level model running into the Lambda, which perfectly works fine. What could be the use case? Okay, so one of the use case is that, let's say we want to make a podcast, right? So we want to extract question answers from that blog post, from some content or blog post, right? So there's these BERT models that Facebook have worked out, and the method they have is called dense passage retrieval. So you can utilize, and literally that's just it's a fancy word, but 5-10 lines of code. You can have that running into Lambda. You give it any content, it will extract the context, the question, and its answer, what it thinks, and his confidence level, and give it to you. So you can have that sort of thing. That's not a large language model. So you can do that within a Lambda function. You can offload that. You don't need large language model there. Then a lot of times, especially when you're taking notes, you don't need real-time information. So it is okay for me if I ask any question and I get an answer maybe 1 hour later. That's totally fine, as long as that is somehow somewhere saved. It's like forum. I go on a forum, I ask something from someone like Whirlpool or something, and the other person is answering me after an hour or something like that. It's that kind of experience. I'm okay with that as well. So that's why the way I'm saying serverless, and the other thing, it can work as well. Other than Lambdas, we can also utilize that for that particular purpose. We can utilize the Spot instances. So using the Spot instances, it's okay if the Spot instance is not in my budget right now, but when it comes, it's going to go and run the batch and give me my answers if my workload is a little bit bigger. Okay, so up to some extent, if errors are okay for some sort of things, if that's okay for me, if I can rerun it for more precision with extra cost, that's okay as well. So that's the different parameters that I have defined in my problem space, at how I can keep the cost down. The whole idea was to have a system for notes taking that I can utilize, not only just reading and writing notes, but actually creating new content out of it, like podcast maybe. Maybe I'm just have a chat with my notes and ask it, okay, how can I do this? And it uses the knowledge that is already in my notes. Based on that, it's coming up with the answers. That's better than AI, right? Because those notes are mostly either taken by me, or the content is already vetted by me that that's the right content. The problem with large language model is nobody knows, other than Facebook, what's in the Llama 2, for example, right? Or nobody knows what's in the training for ChatGPT other than OpenAI. But if you do this way, that way at least the one layer that we have is coming out of from my data, my sort of collection. Okay, so for that, I turn to the open source tooling, what options there are available. So there is a concept, before I dive into it, there's a concept called vectors. I don't want to go into like way too technical above my head, but the vectors are literally just defining something and giving it a number, right? And it's semantic number based on its meaning. For example, if two words have similar meaning, even though they are two different words, they will have the same number. Let's assume that. Or same vector in the vector space, they will have same direction. That's called vector. So how, and this has been, again, this has been here long before OpenAI or ChatGPT. This has been utilized into image similarity searches or similar content searches and things like that. And that's how it works. So why I'm talking about vectors here, because there's a lot of hype right now for the vector stores or vector databases. Even RDS has offering, they updated the open search, where they have now support for the similarity search based on vector store. They have RDS Postgres updates as well, where you can store these vector or these points that I just talked about into that database, and then based on a query, it will find out the similar documents or similar rows. For example, if I have resumes of like millions of candidates, so if I search, give me cloud architect. So even though somewhere if it's cloud engineer or something like that, it's going to find what true meaning is. If somebody, I'm not cloud engineer, might not be a good example, but if the meanings are same somewhere, it's going to bring me those sort of results first, rather than if we do a traditional search with the open search or elastic search. When you search, it's keyword based. So keywords can be different, but vectors would be same. So that's why this is much more granular and much more efficient way to fetch, retrieve information. Okay, why it matters for my use case is because, for example, you have 10 years of notes, right? And of course, you would be meaning different at different level for different meanings, but you still want to capture the meanings, and based on those meanings, when you relate it together, that's the power of it. That's the power of second brain. That's where, when I'm giving it any content and having conversation with AI, that's how the AI understand based on my question, which might be completely different than the content. And it's coming back and giving me answer to it, and that's very important to have in the solution. So how I have this in my solution is I'm not using the traditional vector stores that AWS have or most of other people are using, because it has fundamental problems, which I will not go into. But what I'm doing is there's an open source project called LanceDB. That's a bit advanced form of Parquet format. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. So they built this architecture and data structure from ground up in Rust. It's called Lance format, and they build a database on top of it. And the beauty of this is it's a scalable database on S3. There's no server or nothing like that. It supports both full text and the semantic search or vector-based search as well at the same time. So you can possibly build a solution on that. And the current production level deployment for this LanceDB, it's not a new project, by the way, is like over billion records or something like that. And this is being used in the LLM trainings or fine-tuning, mostly by large organizations. So what I found was that can be utilized as a vector store for us, because for my usage, I don't want to pay every month for RDS cost just for the notes, right? So I can utilize this LanceDB as a vector store or as a database for me. That's one thing. Then for other things, what I chose from AWS Stack was Amplify as a front end, and I can also make a chat system with it. There are a lot of libraries that I can utilize. Then for different sort of workflows, for example, the knowledge distillation that we saw in one of the steps in the second brain building architecture was to distill the knowledge. So the way we distill it is we summarize it, and we after summarization we have different sort of analysis done on that content, which I have in this architecture. But I'll start from here. So the way I choose try to architect it is that you have your front end where you're going to interact with your nodes in a application using Amplify, and you can also have an API on top of it if you want. For example, you can have a Chrome extension built out that is running in your browser. You like something, you click on it, it's automatically sent to your nodes. So, and I have some, but this thing working here, I'll demonstrate as well. You use Cognito, which is part of Amplify, of course, for authentication, because you do want to keep your node store is safe as well. You should also have KMS, which is not over here. So encrypt everything so that the nodes are encrypted. So the use case would be that I comes in here, I uploaded a document or a PDF or a web page or any audio file, let's say. Based on the content, I'll do the content analysis. Let's say if it's an audio file, I'll probably transcribe that, right? So I'll transcribe that, then I'll do the content analysis. I'll extract the question and answer from it. I'll summarize that, and then I'll all the metadata and the other things that I've extracted, I can put them into DynamoDB, right? And then for the vector storage, I can put it into a S3 bucket through a Lambda function, of course, by calculating their embeddings. And when I'm utilizing here nodes, when I want to have a chat with them, so you want to use large language model, there are two ways to do this. One is, of course, you can use the Bedrock, which is secure but a bit expensive. The other way is you use quantized model, which is a less precision than the normal model, and you can have conversation with it. So there are a lot of model available that are quantized at 4-bit, 2-bit. I'm even running a model on my phone as well, just using that technology. It's still able to answer to you, but it's less precise. That's what the difference is. But if you need precision, you can just select the workflow. It goes on through that, of course, the step function, and you can request the step for the EC2 instances. Run the same thing over if you want it more precise. So yeah, so that's how I envision. What's the benefit of this? Let's quickly look at that. So low cost, scalable, secure. You can leverage models for their reasoning, because that's the main idea. You don't want to use the AI for its knowledge, because knowledge will be outdated. You cannot just go back and retrain them. It's not that it's a bit expensive, I believe. So you want to use for their reasoning, and this is one way to do it. There are many other ways, but this is one way to do it. And the other part where I was explaining that you give it any content, and I'm asking, okay, give me the complete code and things like that. That is called in-context learning for these large language models. So you leverage these sort of things, and overall you get the productivity and automation. And yeah, that was the idea. So what we covered is generative AI offerings, what Secondbrain is, and why do we need it. We also discussed not all generative AI use cases might be, are same, and every use case will have its own sort of workflow or tooling or services needed. Then we discussed some natural language processing techniques, and at the end, how you can take advantage of large language models at a low cost. Yeah, that's it. There's the book called is Building a Secondbrain. And any questions? Yeah.
Are you doing the analysis when you put the content into it, and then you're storing the vector at that point? And are you storing the raw data so then you can later, like there's a new version of LandsDB that comes out, you can then have like a
yeah, that's a good question actually. The other aspect of it, let me reframe the question, is that these models have a limited context, right? So for example, Cloud has 2,000, 300,000 K right now, I think so. And ChatGPT have 128K tokens. And token is not actually a word, but consider it a word for now, let's say. So you want to, when I put in the content, what I do is, and even the BERT and other models that I discussed for dense parser retrieval as well, they also have a limited context for tokens. So when I put a content, I chunk it out. And how I do it is I put it into S3 bucket. S3 bucket have notification to Lambda for chunking. It's chunked, put into an extra bucket. That bucket also sent to another Lambda. And then I'm calculating the embedding. Then I'm doing the analysis on its shorter part. But your question was, do I save the raw content? Yes, that is very much needed. What I'm doing is I'm chunking it out. I'm generating metadata on top of that and keeping everything in there, but all the metadata and everything, that's why I use DynamoDB, because that you still want to have access to, okay, which document it was in, which meeting it was in, even though the nodes are too big, but still you can do that. Yep.
are you finding that, is it the raw data that's larger, or is it the output that's?
Obviously the output, but because we are condensing things, right? We are chunking it out. So you do need to have both.
Okay.
Yeah, you do need to have access to both. Yeah.
Where are you running the embeddings models?
Right now on my laptop. But you can run it the dense partial retrieval in AWS Lambda. It's not like huge.
Just converting the text into text design.
That you can done in you can do it inside the Lambda function as well, depending on what model you're using. On that, of course. But
I was just wondering what you were using.
I have it's I don't know exactly what name is. It's pretty recent one. The one all embedding, like it's multilingual one. Yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly. You know. Yeah. Yep.
Are you going to do with SaaS?
If it's serverless, yes. No, actually, like I said, it's going to be different for each one of us. Maybe I understand in podcast. You may understand in visual diagramming as well. So potentially AI would be able to do video like sort of things, model, right? You think about that thing, okay, give me some visual aids. So that's where it's going to build those visual aids. And these system and these things are going to help do that. Not sure. Yeah.
I'll sign up. If you build it, I'll come.
Any other questions? Yep.
So you mentioned Landscape. That's pretty cool. Did you look at anything else? There's a lot of other people out there with free tiers.
Yeah.
What does Landscape give to you that those don't?
So so far, I did extensive research, by the way. You must now understand, by the way, what I'm presenting. But I've seen so far, there's only 2 of the databases that actually sports scalability point of view that I had and aligned to that. One is LansDB. The other one was, I didn't know it was in TypeScript. It wasn't that good. And this is really, really good, because I have listened to the CEO's interviews on YouTube, and he described how they separated out compute and storage and made it like scalable. So the problem with the other offerings are that they, for example, Viviate or for example, Quadrant, which are great, very good databases. But the problem with them is that they have to have a server. And I don't want to pay. That's the problem. It's not that they're not good. They're not good for my use case. So it has to be use case to use case.
You don't find it slow because
No.
With LansDB, I mean, it has to look up it has to do the branch queries over S3.
So yeah, you're right. So this is where LansDB actually shines, because it lets you decide what partitioning, how large partitioning you can do. So based on your data, you can decide a lot of different parameters. And based on that, the chunks that's gonna be stored in S3, it's gonna be based on those things. And there are different approaches. I've seen a blog post about it called Benchmarking LansDB on Medium, I think. That's exactly where they explore. Sometimes it's good to have a database on SSD, but some use cases it might be good to have on S3. And for my use cases, fine. I'm okay with a little bit slowness. Yeah. But yeah. Any other question? Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.